The elevator door slid open just as Rowan Blackwell stepped forward, his jacket already halfway off his shoulders, his mind fixed on numbers, risk, and the silence he expected at the top of his penthouse. Instead, he stopped short. Aura Monroe stood barefoot on the marble floor, her back to him, lifting a pot from the stove. The kitchen lights cast a soft glow over her skin, over the curve of her waist beneath a thin black dress she clearly hadn't worn for him. Steam curled around her like something intimate, something private he hadn't been invited into. Rowan's breath hitched before he could stop it. She turned at the sound, startled, wooden spoon clutched in her hand. "I didn't hear you come in," she said quickly, already stepping back into professional distance. "Dinner will be ready in, I will make you mine tonight." The words left his mouth calm, controlled, as if he were closing a deal instead of crossing a line. Era froze for a moment. The world narrowed to the sound of simmering sauce and the distant city hum outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. Then she set the spoon down with deliberate care and met his gaze. "I'm your chef," she said, her voice steady, but her eyes bright with something sharp. "Not something you get to claim." Rowan had faced hostile boards, hostile takeovers, rooms full of men waiting for him to fail. None of them made his chest tighten like the way she looked at him now, unafraid, unimpressed, unbending. "That's not what I meant," he said, though it was exactly what he'd meant. Aura let out a slow breath. "Then maybe you should say what you actually mean." He didn't. He couldn't. Not without admitting that the sight of her, this woman who never dressed for him, never flirted, never lingered, had knocked something loose inside him. Not without admitting that control, the thing he prided himself on, was slipping. She turned back to the stove, dismissing him without another word, and the rejection followed him all the way into his office. Rowan had hired Aura Monroe 3 months earlier after tasting her food at a private investor retreat in Napa. No introductions, no small talk, just one bite, and the certainty that whoever had cooked it understood restraint, balance, and intention. He'd asked for her name. She'd given it and nothing else. She lived in the penthouse now, in the guest suite down the hall, part of the unspoken contract of discretion. She cooked. He paid well. That was the rule, until tonight. He poured himself a drink he didn't need and stared out at the city. He told himself this was attraction, nothing more. Temporary, manageable. He didn't do relationships. He didn't do need. And yet when dinner was served and she placed the plate in front of him without meeting his eyes, he felt the distance like a bruise. "This is incredible," he said. "Thank you." Her tone was polite, closed. "Sit," he said before he could stop himself. Era hesitated. "That's not part of—" "I know." He softened his voice. "Just sit." She sat across from him, hands folded in her lap, posture perfect, like she was bracing for something. "Why do you work like this?" Rowan asked. "Live in, no staff, no recognition." She gave a faint smile. "Because it's quiet, and quiet keeps things simple." "Nothing about this life is simple," he said. Her gaze flicked up, something like amusement flashing through. "That's your life, Mr. Blackwell. Not mine." "Rowan," he corrected. She shook her head. "Boundaries matter." He leaned back, studying her. "What are you afraid of?" The question slipped out unguarded. Aura's jaw tightened. "I'm not afraid." He smiled faintly. "Everyone is." Before she could respond, the lights flickered once, then twice. Then the penthouse plunged into darkness. "Great," Rowan muttered. Emergency lighting cast the room in dim gold. The stove shut off with a soft click. "I'll fix it," he said, already moving toward the breaker panel. The storm outside cracked thunder across the sky, rain slamming against the glass. The building hummed, then went still. "No power," Rowan said after a moment. "Backup will kick in eventually." Aura wrapped her arms around herself. "I can light candles." They moved through the space together, the darkness shrinking with each flame. The intimacy of it, of being the only two people in a silent tower above the city, pressed in on him. "This wasn't planned," Arya said quietly as if reading his thoughts. "I know." She looked at him, really looked, and something softened. "You're used to people wanting things from you." "Yes." "And you think that makes you powerful." He didn't deny it. "But it also makes you lonely," she said. The word landed harder than any insult. Rowan set his glass down. "You don't know me." "I know what it looks like when someone doesn't know how to be chosen," she said, "only taken." Silence stretched between them, thick and electric. "I don't want to take," he said finally. "I want Her voice was barely above a whisper. Say it right. He stepped closer. I want one night, honest, no expectations, no lies. Ara's breath trembled. And tomorrow? Tomorrow stays the same, he said, even as something inside him twisted at the thought. She searched his face, weighing risk against desire, pride against something warmer. One night, she said at last, on my terms. He nodded, always. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't careless. It was heat and hesitation. Hands brushing, breath shared. It was the kind of intimacy that stripped defenses instead of clothes first. When they finally came together, it was with a hunger that surprised them both. Later, as the storm faded and candlelight flickered low, Ara lay awake, staring at the ceiling. This doesn't change anything, she said softly. Rowan turned toward her, watching the rise and fall of her breath. Of course not. But when morning came and she was still there, moving through the kitchen, hair loose, humming quietly as she cooked, he realized he had been wrong. Everything had changed. Rowan woke to the unfamiliar sound of movement that wasn't his own. For a split second, disorientation hit him. Then memory followed, slow and heavy. Candlelight, her voice, the way she'd said one night like a boundary and a dare all at once. He turned his head. Ara stood at the kitchen island in one of his oversized shirts, sleeves rolled to her elbows, hair loosely twisted at the nape of her neck. She moved with the same calm precision she always did, as if the night before hadn't happened, as if she hadn't undone him in ways no one else ever had. The scent of coffee drifted through the penthouse. You didn't leave, he said, his voice rough with sleep. She glanced over her shoulder. You said tomorrow stays the same. He sat up, sheet slipping down his waist. I assumed you meant after breakfast. Her lips curved faintly. Assumptions get people in trouble. She poured coffee into a mug and slid it across the counter toward him like this was any other morning. The casual intimacy of it made his chest tighten. You're quiet, she added. I'm thinking. That sounds dangerous for someone like you. He almost smiled. They ate together in a strange, careful silence. No awkwardness, no regret, just awareness. Every glance charged, every accidental brush of fingers loud as a confession. Afterward, Ara wiped the counter, then turned to face him. Last night doesn't change my role here. I know. And it doesn't mean access, she continued, to my time, my body, my feelings. I understand. She studied him, searching for sincerity. Then she walked away, disappearing down the hall toward her suite, leaving Rowan standing there with the unsettling realization that he wanted her to come back more than he wanted anything he'd bought in years. The day unraveled him slowly. Rowan sat through meetings he barely heard, nodded at projections he usually dissected, signed documents without reading them twice. Every spare thought drifted back to the kitchen, to the sound of Ara's laugh when she'd forgotten herself for half a second, to the way she pressed her forehead to his chest afterward like she belonged there. He hated it. By evening, he was restless. When he returned home, she was already cooking, the penthouse alive with warmth and sound. He lingered in the doorway, watching her move, resisting the urge to reach for her. Did you have a good day? She asked without turning around. Yes, he lied. She nodded. Dinner will be ready soon. That was it. No invitation. No distance crossed. Rowan poured a drink and leaned against the counter. Do you regret it? Her shoulders stiffened almost imperceptibly. No. Then why are you acting like it didn't happen? She turned slowly. Because it doesn't get to define me. Something sharp flickered in his chest. It defined me. Her eyes widened before she could hide it. That's not my responsibility. I know, he said quietly. I'm not asking you to carry it. I'm just stating a fact. She looked away first. Over the next few days, something unspoken settled between them. Rowan found excuses to be home earlier. Ara lingered longer after meals, letting conversation stretch. They spoke about everything except the thing that pulsed between them. She told him about growing up in a small Oregon town, about learning to cook from her grandmother because it was the only place she felt safe. He told her about foster homes, about learning early that affection came with conditions. I don't like owing people, Ara said one night, washing dishes beside him. I don't like being owed, Rowan replied. It makes things messy. She glanced at him. We're already messy. The words hung there, undeniable. Then the outside world intruded. Rowan's head of security, Marcus Vale, pulled him aside one afternoon. Victor Harlan's been sniffing around again. Rowan's jaw tightened. He always is. This time it's different. He's asking questions about your personal staff. Rowan went still. What kind of questions? Marcus hesitated. About your chef. A flash of heat cut through him. What did you tell him? Nothing, but you should be careful. That night, he found Era on the balcony, wrapped in a blanket, staring out at the city. Is something wrong? She asked when she saw his face. We need to talk, he said. Her body tensed immediately. About what? About you. Her eyes hardened. I don't like how that sounds. Victor Harlan knows you exist, Rowan said, and he uses people to get what he wants. I don't need protecting, she said quickly. I know, but I need you aware. Ara exhaled sharply. This is why lines matter. This is why last night should have stayed last night. It didn't, he said, and pretending otherwise won't change that. She stepped closer, voice low. You're a powerful man, Rowan. Your enemies don't fight fair. I can't afford to be collateral damage. The words sliced through him. You wouldn't be. You don't get to promise that. Silence stretched between them. The tension was no longer just desire but fear, risk, something heavier. I should leave, Ara said suddenly. His heart lurched. What? I'll finish the week, she added quickly. But after that, I'll find something else. No, he said before thinking. Don't. She laughed softly, sadly. See, that's the problem. You're not used to hearing no. Rowan stepped closer, lowering his voice. I'm not asking you to stay because I want control. Then why? Because I don't want to lose you, he admitted. The honesty startled them both. Ara's eyes shimmered. You don't even know what that means. Then teach me, he said. For a moment, it looked like she might reach for him. Instead, she stepped back. I can't be another thing you acquire, she said, not even if it feels good. She walked away, leaving Rowan alone with the echo of his own words and the growing fear that one night hadn't been enough because it had awakened something that couldn't be undone. Ara kept her promise to finish the week, but everything about her changed. She still cooked with the same care, still moved through the penthouse with quiet grace. But the warmth she'd allowed herself after that night withdrew behind something cooler, more guarded. Conversation shortened. Eye contact became brief. When Rowan entered a room, she found a reason to leave it. He told himself it was temporary. He told himself he deserved it. But the absence gnawed at him in a way he hadn't anticipated. On Thursday evening, Rowan came home earlier than usual, the weight of the day clinging to him. A deal he'd spent months structuring had nearly collapsed after a leak, one that smelled suspiciously like Victor Harlan's work. He wanted silence. Instead, he wanted her. He found her in the prep kitchen, sleeves rolled up, flour dusting her forearms. She didn't look up when he entered. Smells good, he said. Dinner will be ready in 40 minutes. He leaned against the counter, watching her knead dough with practiced strength. You're really leaving? Her hands didn't stop moving. Yes. When? Sunday morning. 3 days. The number hit harder than he expected. You already have something lined up? He asked. No. Then why the rush? She finally looked at him, eyes steady but tired. Because staying longer makes it harder to walk away. The honesty undid him more than anger would have. Rowan took a breath. Let me help you. No, not money, he said quickly. Connections, introductions. I can make calls. That's still leverage, she said. And I won't start something new owing you. You don't owe me anything. That's easy for you to say. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. What do you think I'm asking for? She swallowed. Something you don't even realize yet. Before he could respond, Marcus's voice cut through the tension as he entered the kitchen. Sorry to interrupt, Rowan. We need to talk. Now. Ara's eyes flickered between them. I'll give you privacy. No, Rowan said. You can stay. Marcus hesitated, then spoke carefully. Victor Harlan just made a move. He's spreading word that your latest acquisition was built on stolen IP. Rowan's jaw clenched. That's a lie. We know, Marcus said, but he's got media sniffing around. He glanced at Ara, and he's asking questions about your inner circle, trying to find pressure points. Ara stiffened. I don't want to be one. Marcus nodded. Which is why you should be careful. After Marcus left, the kitchen felt smaller, the air heavier. This is exactly what I meant, Ara said quietly. Your world bleeds into everything. Rowan rubbed a hand over his face. I won't let him touch you. You can't promise that. I can try. That's not enough, she said. I've spent my whole life surviving other people's chaos. I won't do it again. Her voice cracked on the last word. Rowan looked at her then, not as a billionaire, not as a man used to winning, but as someone standing on the edge of losing the one thing that had ever felt like home. What happened? He asked softly. Ara hesitated, then spoke like she'd been holding the words in too long. My father made promises he couldn't keep to the wrong people. When things went bad, they didn't come after him. They came after us. Rowan felt a cold knot form in his chest. We moved constantly, changed names. I learned early that being invisible was safer than being wanted. She laughed quietly without humor. Cooking was the only thing no one could take from me. Rowan stepped closer, instinctively reaching for her hand, then stopping himself. You're not invisible to me. That's what scares me, she said. That night, Rowan didn't sleep. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment he had treated control as strength instead of armor. He thought about the way she refused help because she'd learned that help always came with a cost. He thought about the way she chose herself, even when it hurt. By morning, he'd made a decision. On Friday afternoon, Ara was plating lunch when Rowan entered the kitchen with his jacket already on. I'm leaving for the day, he said. She blinked. You never leave early. I am today. She nodded, trying to keep her indifference intact. I'll have dinner ready at 7 o'clock. No, he said, you won't. Her head snapped up. Excuse me? I'm shutting the penthouse down for the weekend, he continued. Security rotation, staff access, everything. I'll be gone. So will Marcus. Confusion flickered across her face. Why? Because if you're going to leave, he said evenly, it shouldn't be because you're afraid of my world. She studied him, suspicion warring with something softer. Where are you going? Does it matter? Yes. He met her gaze. I'm going somewhere. I don't control anything. That evening, Rowan drove himself out of the city for the first time in years, heading north toward a quiet coastal town he barely remembered, a place from a childhood visit before foster homes blurred together. He rented a small house overlooking the water and sat on the porch until the sun dipped below the horizon, the silence louder than any boardroom. Meanwhile, Ara stood alone in the penthouse kitchen, the quiet pressing in on her. She told herself this was good, clean, necessary, and yet when her phone buzzed with a single message from Rowan, I'll be back Sunday, whatever you choose, then I'll respect. Her chest ached in a way she hadn't prepared for. Ara spent Friday night in the penthouse alone, surrounded by a silence she thought she wanted. No footsteps down the hall. No quiet questions about sauces or wine. No steady presence she'd grown used to without admitting it. She cooked anyway, not because she had to, but because her hands needed something to do. She moved through recipes on instinct, letting muscle memory drown out the thoughts she didn't want to face. Rowan had left without argument, without pressure, without asking her to stay. That should have made it easier. Instead, it unsettled her. By Saturday morning, she found herself on the balcony with a cup of coffee, watching the city wake up. Her phone sat heavy in her palm. She didn't text him. She didn't call anyone. She told herself that independence meant sitting with discomfort instead of running from it. But by noon, she was restless. She took the subway down to Brooklyn, to a small community kitchen she volunteered at on weekends when her schedule allowed. The familiar rhythm grounded her, chopping, stirring, laughing softly with the women she cooked beside. It reminded her who she was at outside marble floors and glass walls. Something's different, June Whitaker said, bumping her shoulder lightly. You're smiling like you're about to cry. Ara huffed a breath. That obvious? June raised an eyebrow. You want to tell me why a man with more money than sense is living rent-free in your head? Ara hesitated, then spoke. He stepped back. June blinked. That's new. I know, Ara said, and now I don't know what to do with it. June wiped her hands on her apron. Does he make you feel small? No. Does he listen when you say no? Yes. Then maybe you're not afraid of him, June said gently. Maybe you're afraid of wanting him. The words struck too close to truth. That evening, Rowan sat alone on the porch of the coastal house, the sound of waves steady and relentless. He'd spent the day doing nothing. No calls, no emails, no assistants hovering nearby. Just silence and the slow realization of how empty his life had been before Ara's quiet presence filled the spaces. He thought about the way she'd looked at him the first night, like she expected him to disappoint her. He thought about how badly he wanted to prove her wrong. On Sunday morning, he woke early, heart pounding with a nervous energy he didn't recognize. He showered, dressed simply, and drove back to the city without music, rehearsing nothing. He didn't plan to persuade, he planned to listen. Era heard the elevator before she saw him. The doors slid open and Rowan stepped out, looking different somehow. Less armored, more real. Hi, he said. Hi, she replied. They stood there, the weight of unsaid things between them. I packed, Ara said quietly, nodding toward the hallway. Rowan nodded once. The absence of arguments startled her. That's it? That's it, he said, unless you want to say something. She folded her arms, grounding herself. I don't belong in your world. I know. That's why I don't want to trap you in it. Her breath caught. I don't want one night, he continued, voice steady but raw. I don't want possession or convenience. I want choice. Yours. She searched his face, looking for manipulation, for expectation. She found none. And if I choose to leave, she asked, then I'll be grateful you stayed as long as you did, he said, and I wish I'd met you sooner. Tears burned behind her eyes. You make this very hard. I know, he said softly. I'm sorry. Aura laughed, did a shaky sound. You're supposed to fight. I am, he said, just not you. Silence stretched, thick with possibility. I can't be your secret, she said finally. You wouldn't be. I can't be something you retreat to when the world gets heavy. I wouldn't do that either. She stepped closer, heart racing. And I won't stay unless this is real. Not just passion, not just comfort. Rowan met her gaze without flinching. Then let me be clear. I don't want you to stay because it's safe. I want you to stay because you choose me. And if you ever don't, I'll let you go. The words cracked something open in her chest. Ara took a slow breath. If I stay, she said, I don't stay as your chef. His lips curved faintly. I wouldn't insult you like that. I'll still cook, she added, but on my terms. Deal. She hesitated, then said the thing she'd been afraid to name. And if this turns into love, Rowan didn't interrupt. I won't accept halfway. Neither will I, he said. She reached for his hand then, tentative but sure. His fingers closed around hers, warm and grounding. I'll stay, Ara said, but I'm not promising forever. Rowan squeezed her hand gently. I'm not asking for it. I'm earning it. Later that night, as they lay together, not rushed, not desperate, Rowan traced idle patterns on her arm. You know, he murmured, I used to think control was everything. Ara smiled against his shoulder. What do you think now? I think I was wrong, he said, and I think you're changing my life. She laughed softly. Careful, that sounds like a promise. Maybe it is. The shift didn't happen all at once. It happened in moments. In the way Rowan started asking instead of assuming. In the way Ara stopped bracing herself for the end of things. In the quiet mornings where coffee was shared in silence that felt full instead of empty. Rowan didn't announce her presence to the world right away. He let her set the pace. When investors asked about the change in his schedule, he simply said, my priorities evolved. When tabloids speculated, he didn't correct them or feed them. Ara noticed everything. You're different, she said one evening as they cooked together, their movements synchronized without effort. I'm trying to be, he replied. No, she said softly, you are. The first time he introduced her publicly, it wasn't at a gala or a board event. It was at a charity fundraiser for culinary education, one Ara volunteered with quietly. Rowan stood beside her, hand at the small of her back, and said simply, this is Ara. She's the reason I'm here. No title, no explanation. She squeezed his hand once, grounding him more than any applause ever had. Victor Harlan made one last attempt to fracture what Rowan had built, leaking distorted stories, implying favoritism, hinting at impropriety. Rowan shut it down with facts, transparency, and something new. Calm. I won't sacrifice my life to protect my reputation anymore, he told his board. If that's a problem, we should have this conversation now. They didn't challenge him. That night, Ara found him standing by the windows, city lights reflecting in his eyes. You could have lost everything, she said. I would have lost more if I lost you, he replied. She studied him, then nodded once, like she was accepting a truth she'd already known. Months passed. Ara moved out of the guest suite at the Dimart. Not because Rowan asked, but because she chose to. The penthouse changed with her presence. Fresh herbs on the counter. Laughter echoing down halls that had once felt cold. Rowan found himself lingering in the kitchen more than his office. Listening, learning, letting himself be known. One quiet Sunday morning, Ara stood at the counter reviewing notes for a culinary program she wanted to start. One focused on women rebuilding their lives through food. Rowan watched her for a long moment before speaking. I want to support this. She didn't look up. I know. Not funding, he clarified. Support however you decide. She finally met his eyes, emotion softening her voice. Thank you. He took a breath, heart pounding. I don't want to scare you. She smiled faintly. You're past that. I don't want to rush you. You won't. I don't want to assume, Rowan continued. Ara interrupted gently. Say what you mean. He stepped closer, dropping to one knee. Not because of tradition, but because humility finally felt natural. I wanted you for one night, he said, voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. And you changed my life forever, not because you stayed, but because you taught me how to choose. He opened the ring box, simple and elegant. Marry me, not because it's safe, not because it's grand, but because we grow better together. Era stared at him, tears spilling freely now. You know I won't disappear into your shadow, she said. I would never ask you to, he replied. I want to stand beside you. And yours. She laughed through tears. You're terrible at half measures. I learned from the best. She didn't say yes right away. She pulled him to his feet, kissed him slowly, deliberately, then rested her forehead against his. Yes, she whispered. I choose you. The wedding was small by design. A vineyard just outside the city. June cried openly. Marcus smiled like a man who'd seen something worth protecting. Rowan wore a simple suit. Ara walked barefoot down the aisle, sunlight in her hair, strength in her step. When Rowan spoke his vows, his voice didn't shake. I spent my life believing love was possession, he said. Then you showed me its presence. I promised to listen, to choose you daily, to never cage what was meant to grow. Ara's voice was clear, unwavering. I promised not to shrink myself to fit your world, and I promised to let you walk beside me in mine. When they kissed, it wasn't for the crowd. It was for the quiet promise they'd kept from the very beginning. Later that night, as they stood alone beneath the string lights and open sky, Ara rested her head against his chest. Do you ever think about that first night? She asked. All the time, Rowan admitted. Then he smiled. I'm grateful you didn't belong to me. She laughed softly. Good, because I never did. She took his hand, fingers twining naturally now. But I chose you anyway. And that, more than wealth, more than power, was the only thing Rowan Blackwell ever truly needed. In the quiet glow of candlelight, in the chaos of a powerful man's world, Rowan and Ara's story teaches us one of life's most tender and profound lessons. Real love doesn't begin with possession or control. It begins the moment we choose each other with honesty, respect, and courage. Rowan had spent his entire life mastering control, believing power meant never needing anyone. But Ara, with her quiet strength and fierce boundaries, showed him that true connection only grows when we're willing to let go of armor, listen instead of command, and step back even when our hearts beg us to hold on tighter. She didn't want to be claimed or rescued. She wanted to be chosen, freely and honestly. And in learning to give her that choice, Rowan discovered that the greatest strength isn't keeping walls up, but having the humility to lower them and say, I want you, not because I can have you, but because I'm willing to earn you every single day. This heartfelt story reminds us that love isn't about grand gestures or perfect timing. It's about two people brave enough to face their fears, respect each other's boundaries, and slowly build something real in the middle of life's storms. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is choose someone and let them choose us back. If this emotional love story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss these beautiful stories that warm the soul and inspire the heart. In the comments below, tell me honestly, have you ever been afraid to let someone truly see you? Or has someone's patience and respect helped you lower your walls? I read every single comment and can't wait to connect with your story. Your voice matters here. Thank you for being part of this beautiful journey.